We are live. Hello. Sorry, I'm just finishing a little Pop-Tart. We are doing office hours. So if you've never heard of office hours before, you can go to kcd.im/office-hours, and that will bring you to this screen and explain what office hours is all about. Basically, it's your opportunity to ask me questions. Yeah, once a week, I do this. I'm thinking actually we're going to switch office hours to Fridays, probably at the same time. Now that school is out and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, it just simplifies things for the family. So just keep an eye out on the KCD or office hours channel in the Discord, because this is where I'll post updates on whether we switch to Fridays, or maybe we'll switch to a different day altogether. But yeah, so this is where we're doing all of our office hours stuff. So feel free to come to the Discord and you can ask questions in here. I give priority to people who are actually in the Zoom call when they ask questions. So if you want to make sure you get your question answered, then join the Zoom. And even if you're in the Zoom, you can ask here in the Discord if you need to like share code and stuff, and if you need to share your screen too. So all of that said, I am ready to answer questions. What questions do y'all have for me? And if there aren't any in the Zoom call, that's fine. We do have a couple in here. Okay, sweet. I'll just go in here. Feel free to interrupt me if you're in the Zoom and you want to ask something specific. Let's see. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, that's reference to last week. Okay, I think this is our first question. And actually it looks like Rupert may have answered it, but I'll just take a look at it. Let's assume I have a component above.
Hi, Ken. This is Artish.
Hey there. Oh, is this your question?
Yes, that's my question. Below, I have just added a code box link also.
Okay,
So
awesome.
I think so. I have just replicated the issue. Like, maybe few things might not, I would say, suit it, or it might not feed it. But this is something similar is happening with me in the implementation. So if you want, I can just explain you what's the issue.
Okay, I'm gonna here actually let's do. I'm just going to open this up locally because I don't trust Code Sandbox to run tests properly.
Yeah,
so I'll get that installed while I'm reading your question here really quick to get up to speed. Okay, so the question is, you have use auth query is making a query that is mocked or making a request that's mocked. You can't capture the side effect of data. So is it this right here that you're trying to capture?
Yes, exactly. So what I've done is I've modified the code a little bit just to replicate the scenario what's happening. So basically, it's like, whenever I'm mocking the use auth query, and in my test case, like, I'm not getting the updated value. So basically, the state is not getting set.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got a couple of thoughts before we look into solving what you have right now. First, I would recommend against using just.mock if you can help it, and instead this use auth query is probably making an HTTP call that you could mock with MSW. Did you try that already?
No, I didn't try that.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest doing first. But let's continue with this, because some of the things that I'm going to show you to solve this will actually probably help you when you take that approach anyway. Yeah, and Rupert is correct here, the wait for next update, but it looks like you tried that. So we'll that was what I was gonna jump into. And actually not wait for next update. I actually don't like that, that utility. Yeah. Well, while you're not talking, Atish, could you mute yourself? There's a lot of
Sure.
background noise. Thank you. Feel free to unmute yourself if you need to talk. So I need to look this up because I don't actually maintain this library at all. And so there are parts of the, and I don't actually use it all that often. So there are parts of the API that I'm unfamiliar with. And yeah, async utilities is what I want to look for. Yeah, just wanted to double check that wait for was a thing. I recommend against using wait for next update. That's kind of an implementation detail that you're waiting just for the next update. So I would not recommend using this. I would recommend wait for. And actually, I'm kind of guessing that if you use that instead, this problem will go away. But let's just try. Yeah, okay. So you have a simple use auth query, and then in your test, you're mocking that. That's fine. Looks like, yeah, okay. I don't know why this is complaining. All right, whatever, ESLint. We'll just ignore ESLint there. So what you're expecting is that this use hello will get the data and it will return this after changed thing. And that's what you're actually trying to get right here. The problem is that, let's see, after change to equal true. Hold on a second. Oh, I see. Okay, so you do expect it to be a Boolean, but there's nothing in here that says we're waiting for any asynchronous thing to happen. And we know that an async thing is going to happen, not only because you have this set timeout. Well, actually, that's why. It's because you have this set timeout, which I'm guessing is just simulating like a network request.
Exactly.
So something asynchronous is going to happen, and so you need to do something asynchronous. And calling in your example earlier, you were calling re-render. That's not going to do it either. You need to wait for or do something asynchronous. You already have async on your test, which is good. So we'll bring in wait for, and then we will await wait for. And when we're talking about React hooks, the only thing that we really can wait for is for the result to change in some way. When we're doing like components, then those are the when you're waiting for like DOM stuff. You typically don't want to wait for some state to change, but the state is actually part of your API, so this is totally fine. Okay, so let's get our test running in watch mode. Oh, that makes sense. There we go. Okay, sweet. So wait for is not a function. That's surprising. Like I said, this is not, I haven't used this library I don't use it very often. So that's odd. Is there anything that shows me how to import that? Yeah, it doesn't export a wait for. Huh. Async utils. Okay. So this is, oh, okay. They export an async utils thing. I think this is what it looked like you're supposed to do. Nope, no dice. Huh, what is this async utils thing? Maybe I should read the docs. This is unexpected. Huh, okay, let me look at their source here. Here, hold on a second. Maybe it'll show something in here. So this is what I'm importing from. Exporting everything from Pure. And then Pure exports all of this stuff, which does not include async utils. Maybe they want you to import that as like a separate file or something. No. Here, let's look at unpackage really quick. Sorry, you're watching me learn a testing library package, which I bet a lot of people think that this is mine, but nope, it's not. Okay. Lib, no. I wonder how they expect people to use the async utils. Okay. I'm going to just ask this. I'm not going to wait for a response or anything, but use of async utils is unclear. Not exporting async utils directly. Okay. I'm sort of ashamed to admit it, but it's unclear to me how to use the async utils based on the docs. Had to dig around a lot to figure it out. I'm acting under the assumption that I will figure it out. Maybe I won't. Could there be a few code examples added to the docs? Okay, let's hope we can figure this out though here. Let's move this over here. Yeah, I'm not sure how to get those async utils. Let's keep digging. So it's not coming from index. So I guess you have to import it directly from core. All right, let's find async utils. Async utils. It's got to be in here somewhere. Okay, core index. Oh, okay. So we're spreading async utils from core index. And we're spreading those on create render hook. Oh, okay. I know. Yes, this makes sense. I mean, it sort of makes sense here. What we need to do is you don't import it. You get it from here. Wait for. Okay, let me go back to that issue. Probably shouldn't have posted the issue so early. Oh, and to be clear, I assumed that, wait, the trouble is that I assume that, wait, the async utils would be available as direct imports like they are in React testing library. Is there a reason they're not? I'm sure there's a good reason that they're not, but we'll just ask that. Okay, cool. I figured it out. So now we can wait for, and it, yeah, not super surprised it's broken. So let's see what messed up. Callback must not return anything, but it doesn't. So that's odd. That's unusual. Okay, so we are awaiting wait for, oh, but yeah, this actually seems like a bug because wait for is 100% async, even though the callback here is not async. So it's either a bug or it's just an unusual API. Let me see. Yeah, so the callback should return a Boolean or void. Yeah, man, this is unfortunate. I think this is a bug, and I don't have too much time to dive into figuring out what is causing this bug, but yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have much more time during office hours. I'm sure there are other questions, but
Not an
here,
issue.
I'll just answer kind of generally what needs to happen. And maybe I was doing something wrong, but I think that there's a bug. This is what you're going to want to do. You'll do a wait for this state. This is a solid test right here. To take it a step further, I would get rid of this just mock, and I would instead use MSW to mock the request that useauth query is making. And that will give you additional confidence. So let me come down here and blog here. Let me reply to this to make that correlated. So you stop mocking fetch. So you're actually not mocking fetch. You're mocking the module that is fetching, which is actually even less confidence. So yeah, I would suggest using MSW to mock out the request or to give a mock response to the request. And then, yeah, and then you should be able to use wait for. And if it doesn't work like this, then that's a problem. And this looks like it's a bug to me, because what it looks like right here is, I'm guessing the underlying code is returning a promise to this act function that it's calling under the hood for you, or it's returning something. Let's see. Yeah, so it probably is using an async function or returning a promise, but it shouldn't be. Yeah, that's not the way that React testing library wait for works. In fact, just for the fun of it, if we bring in testing library React, I think we might be able to use wait for from testing library React. And then we get rid of this. I bet this will work. The drawback to this is with React hook testing library, you don't actually need, yeah, it didn't work. You don't actually need to have a DOM in place, but with React testing library, you do. That would be like the only trade-off, but most of the time you probably have a DOM in place for other tests anyway. So
yeah, thanks for the info that was there.
Yeah, the reason that this didn't work is because we have different version of act in play, so or different renderers. So this is rendering with the React test renderer, whereas this wait for is using act from React DOM, and so that's why those aren't going to work together, which is a bummer. But anyway, hopefully some of that sort of makes sense and helps you go further.
I'll just try with the the replacing just mock thing, and if that doesn't work, I'll just raise an issue in GitHub.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, good luck.
Thanks for your help. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Who's next? Okay, I'll go with Yago's question here. Nice new pick, Yago. Looks pretty cool, actually. Yeah, that's cool. What's your opinion on the best way to hide certain features on a page based on roles and permissions? I was thinking hook, but the more I think about it, I think a guard component that either renders or hides children. Do you have any blog posts on this? I don't think I have a blog post about this. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I've done this in so many different ways, in using like a ton of different, I did this with Backbone and AngularJS, and actually I think I did this with jQuery even without Backbone, and I've done it with React. I haven't done it recently, so I can't tell you what I did recently, but in general, yeah. So like at PayPal, when we did this, we used this module. Let's see, what did that do? Yeah, all it did was it would read the it gave us a function that we could call that said, here are the permissions Yeah, it's kind of like what this is doing. Here are the permissions that are required for this this feature. Do they have sufficient permissions? And then we would just ternary. We just put a ternary on whether or not to render that thing. I could see the admin or this guard thing being useful. Maybe I don't know. I would start with just ternaries everywhere and see if that's painful enough to warrant having a special component for it. I'm just trying to think of the drawbacks to abstracting this. I don't really see too many. Yeah, and Peter, this blog post is pretty similar. The problem is that this blog post actually references the fact that, like, if you have a lot of components that are shared, then you are still going to have where is it? I feel like there was yeah, if there's a lot of stuff that's shared, then you are still going to have a lot of if statements or ternaries and stuff. And while authentication is pretty often in many instances, like here's the authenticated side and here's the unauthenticated side, it's not quite the same with permissions, because most of that's just like spread throughout the app. You get like this little icon if you're an admin or something. But keep this in mind, because you can do this at the router level. If there's a page that you don't want people to find, I've done this, and many people do this. They will have a special route component that they render that will redirect people if they don't have sufficient permissions to see the route. And this is such the wrong way to do it. Just don't render the route. Now, I can think maybe sometimes you might not know whether they can see it until they get to the route. But if that's the case, then restructure things so that you do. Yeah, so like keep that in mind. If there's an entire route people shouldn't be able to see based on their permissions, then determine that before you even render the route, and just don't render the route. I guess unless you want to redirect them somewhere specific or something, maybe. But anyway, yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, I can't really think of a lot of reasons why making a component for this is a bad idea. Unless unless the children in here are just like tons, like maybe you're on a page and only if you're an admin can you see this data table that like crunches tons of data directly in here, not inside of a component, but like right between the admin card, then that could be a performance issue, I suppose, for people who don't actually need to pay the performance penalty. But if it's that big of a performance problem, then maybe you should fix the performance problem for the people who can't see it anyway. So yeah, I can't really think of a reason why not to make something like this. I think it, yeah, probably makes it easy. See if you can get that working with TypeScript, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah.
The thing is, exactly like you said, like my first approach was like the hooks and the ternaries, but then we had like a lot of ternaries. It was making like very unreadable. Like the returns had a bunch of nested ternaries. I'm like, I think it'd be easier if I had like a guard component where I can just like compose those. Like if it's something in the admin guard that like all admins can see, but only admins with this kinds of permissions can see this. So I was thinking of something like this, like permissions, and maybe you don't want to not render something, you want to render something else. And then you can do like the alternate, which would be like defaulted to null, or some different component that you want to render when that permission is not granted. So that's one of the things I was thinking. But yeah, it makes sense too that you still gonna render this component, right? Because it's inside of the children. Yeah, but that was my pain point when I started thinking about this.
Yeah, I think that I think the component's a good idea. You might consider having using a prop other than children, so that you can say if they have these permissions, render this. If they don't, render that. I don't know what you'd call that prop, like has and does not have or something. That's pretty stupid, but yeah, or just like consequent and alternate. That's what we call that, the blocks in an if else. So the if is the consequent and the alternate is the else. So yeah, you could do something like that. The part of the reason why I was initially resistant to this is because it feels a lot like early when React was starting, and even now sometimes I saw somebody suggest this just the other day. People want to make an if component so that you can have like ng if type things in your JSX, where it's just like, well, just use a ternary for goodness sake. But yeah, this is a special case, I think. And as you stated, it got to be kind of complicated and frustrating. But yeah, so I would maybe do an admin guard sort of thing that has permissions and then consequence and alternate, or you can call it whatever you want. I'm not sure whether I like that. There was something else I was thinking about with regard to this, but it is now gone. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly
Yeah.
like my reasoning too. And yeah, I think the naming that you gave is nice. The alternate and the constant, right?
It's a consequent.
Consequent. Yeah. So
Like
I think
consequences.
those are going to be good names. And yeah, it makes sense to not be on the children directly. So, and it's easier to compose, because I was thinking children because it's easier on someone that's developing to compose stuff like this. So like if I have like a big tree under there, like there's parts that are going to be like with other guards, then it would be easier to compose than inside of like a prop. Okay, I gave some thought, but yeah, it makes sense too. I'll just play around with the API and see what lands best.
Yeah, find what you hate the least.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember what the other thing I was going to say is, and that is, this is actually pretty similar to in spirit to what I did for Angular, where I had a directive, and for those unfamiliar, directives allowed you to create your own attributes, and when any element had this attribute on it, then it would call your function, your link function, and different other functions that you provide, so that you can modify that element in different ways, and even like manipulate its state and stuff like that. It's pretty wild. Made a lot of power, but boy, was it a fun gun. But yeah, so this is the same in spirit, because with that, I could just plop an attribute onto here and be like, this only shows up if they have these permissions. And then my directive could say, don't remove this from the page, I think is, or I can't remember exactly how it worked. I think I maybe had a compile function and I just like changed what the template looked like or something. It's AngularJS was a time. But yeah, with React, the composition model isn't attributes that you apply to elements, but rather components that you wrap around other components, or you take these components and pass them as props, or the children prop. So yeah, this is kind of the same in spirit. And frankly, the AngularJS solution I had worked pretty well. So I feel like this is probably going to be successful. So good luck. Yeah, I think most of the time when you've asked questions, I haven't done much more than validate what you were thinking already. But I'm happy to serve as your validator.
Yes, it's nice to bounce ideas off someone. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's always the render prop approach, which can be fun. I personally probably wouldn't go with that.
That gets messy real quick if you have nested ones. So you had render props, and then if I have component one, there needs to be a guard inside of that too, and that's gonna just not be.
Anytime you're thinking maybe I should do a render prop, you should probably be thinking maybe I should do a hook, because and you've already tried that. So okay, cool. Anything else?
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, let me stop sharing mine. Go for it.
So I was actually, I ran into a situation which I eventually got rid of, but I still was not able to understand why that was happening. So, so this is my Gatsby site basically.
I can't see your screen.
Okay, is it visible now?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay. So this is basically Gatsby site I am working on, and every page is basically wrapped inside a layout component. So, and layout has common things like modal and toast and spinner and others. So inside this modal, and this everything is wrapped inside this state context trap, which is a pure context thing. And then inside this modal, I have a portal, which is in turn returning this modal content. And here inside, I am using this context. And then when I, on this click of this donate now button, I'm actually changing the state to show the modal. And I have a console log here to log the state, and console log here as well. But when I click on this, the modal one doesn't log.
Okay, so we see that the state is logged, but the modal state is not logged. Is that right?
Yeah, so the log is coming from here, but not from here.
Got it. Okay, so who is responsible for rendering the modal content?
The portal.
Okay, and who's responsible for rendering that modal? That's the layout component?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and it looks like there's no condition for rendering the modal component. So go back to that modal component again. Let's scroll down, not the content, just the modal component. I just want to see if there's a condition. Yeah, so there's the portal root.
Yeah, since this is a
Okay.
category, I had to do this so that
Yeah.
on SS it doesn't do that.
Okay. So what's happening is you're triggering a re-render. So the state is getting updated, but the modal component itself, that modal right there on 53, that is not, no, line 53, that is not getting re-rendered because its state is not getting updated and it's not consuming context or anything that would trigger it to re-render. And so here's what's happening is when the thing hydrates on the client, the modal function will get called. Portal root is set to a ref that has current, which is initialized to undefined. And then that if statement, the consequent doesn't run because there's no current. So it's going to return null. So that modal content is not rendered. And so, and that's it. So modal is rendering null right now. Then you click on the button that triggers a re-render of the context provider, but it does not re-render the modal. And so because the modal is not re-rendered, it doesn't get a chance to create that portal. So that's what that's the problem.
Got it. So I was just wondering why this is happening. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So as far as a solution,
yeah, I eventually ended up removing portal, and so this.
Yeah,
is
if you use context like you're doing there, then it will work, right?
Yeah. This worked.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a hack. I would not recommend that. I'm trying to think of the best way to go about solving this. How about you go to your layout component, and in there, let's.
If I move this here, it works.
Right. Yeah, because so this is actually related to a blog post that I've written about. You can this is an optimization that that React has in place to prevent unnecessary re-renders of stuff that shouldn't be. And frankly, the modal should not re-render. There's nothing that the modal is doing that requires a re-render. The trick is that you actually need it to re-render so that you can render the portal. So that's why we're having this bit of a problem. What I would, so if you go up to the modal content, that's where it's consuming the state, right? It's calling use context. Yeah. so what I would suggest is, as a solution, is move that. There are a couple of ways to solve this, but I think the easiest and most sensible way to solve this is to move your use context to the modal and then pass those values as props to the modal content.
Got it.
And that'll solve it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. So this is more of a issue because of this Gatsby SSR, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's part of the reason why you're having this trouble. If it wasn't SSR,
yeah,
then you could put that document get by ID on line like 51 outside of the modal entirely, and then you just pass that directly rather than using a ref at all, because there's only one instance of it anyway. So of that particular element. Also, do I write about this? No, I don't. You might look into using Reach UI. They have a really great dialogue, which is basically a modal dialogue component that I would suggest looking into. It's fully accessible, and so you don't have to worry about doing all of that bug fixing when people complain about things. And the other thing, oh man, I'm trying to think of where I have an example of this. I think, let me see if I can find.
yeah, I'll share so that you can share.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's. I know. So I also have a modal that I render. Yeah, and actually, I think Reach UI might actually solve this completely. I don't think I need to worry about it with Reach UI. So I'm using, yeah, it's in lib, but under the hood, this is all Reach dialogue stuff. And I just am using emotion to style it as my dialogue. But the cool thing with Reach UI is they handle all of this stuff under the hood for you. So you don't even need to worry about whether there's an element on the page or anything. They make all this work. Let's see if we can find the code where they do that. Oh, they've got a Reach portal. Maybe that is what they're doing. Let's see, get owner document. Nope, that's not going to be it. I'll only dig for a little bit. They have a lot of utilities. Okay, create portal. That's what I want to find. So they have this portal node. Yeah, and this is what they do, is they create an element, and then they append it to the document. So you don't have to like document query selector or get by ID or whatever. They create it for you. It works out great. So the real solution to your problem, I would suggest just use Reach UI. They've solved all of the accessibility problems that you're going to face and everything. And then the entire problem is eliminated. So.
Got it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Good luck. Would like to ask if you have any source for learning browser rendering pipeline. Yeah, so I don't think that I haven't. I'm trying to remember how I learned about that, and I think I just kind of learned it over the years talking with people about it, and yeah, like at conferences, somebody will over dinner or something. I feel like I remember having a conversation like this or something, but yeah, so I don't have any specific resources, but I'm pretty sure that Google has this thing, web dev, that allows you to learn different things. There's Web Vitals. Can't remember. Nope. Yeah, I feel like there was Google had something. I don't think this is it. That explained, maybe it was their developer site, browser layout, repaint, reflow. Let's just put all the words that we can get in there, and then developers.google.com, I think is what it is, maybe. Oh, did IO happen? Whoops, I'm a GDE. I didn't know Google I/O was happening. Oh, that's funny. No, that's probably not going to be it. I think Google has some cool articles about this, but I don't have anything. If other people have great resources, please feel free to share those. Yeah, there it is. Web fundamentals. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Yep, there you go. I think I've maybe even, no, I've never seen this, but it looks correct. So yeah, give that a look. Thank you. You're the one who asked the question, aren't you? Oh, no, you're not. Thank you for giving that. Yeah, and Yago shared something too. Sweet. And MDN is always an awesome source of information. So yeah, is this, I should just hand office hours over to the community. Thank you, folks. All right, moving on. Next one. Any other questions? I'm in the process of putting together my son's new bed that we got from IKEA yesterday, which, as anybody who has experience with IKEA knows, is an all-day event. Started at like 3 hours ago. So I can go back to that unless anybody else has questions. All right, sweet. How do you go about refining tasks when is a task the right size? And how many elements? Okay, two totally separate questions. So refining tasks to make them the right size. Yeah, on a team, this matters a lot, especially so that, and even by yourself, it matters to be able to scope something down to something that you can actually accomplish in a reasonable amount of time and get some good feedback on things. So yeah, what's when is a task the right size? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you try to break it down into individual parts, especially when you have like feature toggles and you can ship stuff. Like you want to be able to ship as small changes as possible, so that when there's something that broke, it's easier to identify what broke or what caused the breakage. The more changes that you ship all at once, the more likely you are to end up with a situation where things are busted and you're not sure what caused the breakage. And so getting a phone call from some Utah number, probably fake. Yeah, let's I don't know, like you break it down until you can't break it down anymore. I mean, you could say, oh, okay, I'm building this new page and now I've got the margin set. All right, that's task number 1 complete. Like you can go too far. But I don't know. I don't really have any specific advice other than you kind of get a sense for what a good task size is. Maybe when you're looking at something, I think you typically can know if something's too big. If it's like, wow, this will take me all day, or this will take me like 2 weeks, or something, then, and I guess it depends on the scope of what you're trying to do. If you're like planning for sprint planning, and you have 2 weeks to work on something, you can say, well, I don't think that I can accomplish that task in 2 weeks. Well, then clearly that needs to be broken down to fit within the 2-week sprint or whatever it is that you're doing. And so, yeah, once you have something cut down that much, then that's enough for sprint planning. But then you're coming down to your day and you're starting your day and you're like, well, I've got this 2-week thing, I can't fit that. So you break it down further into its individual parts until you can get something that can fit into the day. And you're like, well, I've got to have lunch, I want to finish something before lunch. And so you break it down even further. And so like, this is what I can get done before lunch. Yeah, I hope that is helpful. Just stream of consciousness. The second question, how many elements in a form? before you start using submit event instead of controlled components. Yeah, so I actually, it has nothing to do with how many elements there are. I don't control components if I don't need to control components. So if I don't need to change the value of those inputs programmatically, then I do not control the component. You can add an on-change listener to the form and be notified when anything is changed, which can be useful, or an on-change listener to the individual elements of the form, and for like real-time errors as people are typing. Yeah, and I just use the on-submit listener for gathering all the input values. I won't use the on-submit listener for, I won't gather the input values using the elements property if I already am controlling the form, because it just seems like useless to do that if I already have all the state. Yeah, it has nothing to do with how many elements there are. It has everything to do with, do I need to control the inputs? So, and the only reason you'd need to control it is if you need to programmatically change it. That's literally the only reason that they have that API. Yeah, that's it. Okay, sweet. Asking question about using TypeScript with React. Absolutely, I use TypeScript with React. TypeScript is awesome. I'm moving everything that I have to TypeScript over the last while. I've been using TypeScript for several years, but only recently started deciding to say, hey, I'm going to teach everything with TypeScript as well. So learn some TypeScript, and I will have some resources for that in hopefully this year. This year is flying by. I don't know how much I'm going to get done this year. Okay, sweet. Face some performance issues with large Formic forms. I've used Formic once, sort of, and it was just inherited code, so I may not be able to help you much. When doing validations, have you faced this issue too? No, I have not. Formic docs suggest using key index when using field array. Facing issues. Yeah, I don't know enough about Formic to help you. I'm sorry. I'm sure they have a reason to suggest it. Jared is a very intelligent React engineer. He's very experienced and stuff. So I'm sure that there's a good reason for that, but I do not know anything about Formic that can help you. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Good luck on that Formic question. Haven't used TypeScript so far. Give it a shot. It's great. Yeah, TypeScript in being Epic React. Yes, it will. So when I upgrade all the Epic React workshops to TypeScript, Epic React will be updated in place. You will. The plan is right now. I don't make promises. I make plans, and I don't mind sharing my plans. But you just have to know that it's not a promise. And if I change plans, you can't get mad. But the plan right now is to make sure that you always have access to the current videos on Epic React. That's what you bought, and it's yours. There's that. That's the plan. And then we'll replace everything with a total re-record of every video, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm being facetious. The 350 videos is very hard to record. That'll be like 3 months of me doing nothing but recording videos. At least Egghead edits those for me now, because that takes even longer. Yeah, fun stuff. So yeah, it'll just be updated in place. But that is very far into the future at this point. I still have to update all the material, and then once I have all that material updated, I'll know what features of TypeScript I use, so that I can take that and turn that into a TypeScript for React workshop, so that you can go through that first if you aren't familiar with TypeScript. And so I've got to release that before I update Epic React. So okay. Yeah, as far as like abstractions for forms, I worked with a lot of forms in AngularJS, and performance was always a problem. It was definitely AngularJS's fault, but I can appreciate when forms can be a real problem. But I think a lot of I don't know, a lot of our forms don't need to be controlled, and a lot of our problems come when we're controlling forms. Yeah, like when we're triggering state updates on every keystroke, and literally every component updates when we strike a key. I think that's not a good thing. And if you can avoid that, that's good. And so the way that you can avoid that is by, first of all, don't control your components if you don't need to. And then secondly, if you need to show, secondly, don't use onChange if you don't need to respond when the user is changing. And so by not controlling components, you don't need to respond when the user is changing the field, unless you're doing real-time validation and you're wanting to show error messages as they're typing, which if you do that, make sure that you wait until they've finished typing or until they've actually interacted with the form. Don't tell them that their credit card number is improperly formatted if they only just started writing it in. But if you are showing those validation errors, then you do need to respond on change. And if and therefore you need to put that into state and have some error messages show up based on the value of the form. And if that's the case, then you are going to be re-rendering a lot of stuff. It's hard to get around that, except you can get around that by putting the form fields into individual components, and those individual components can control the state. And so when I'm updating this form field, it's not doing anything to these other ones over here. They don't need to re-render. They don't need to determine whether there's errors or whatever. This one can just be right here, can manage its own state, and it can just re-render as the user's typing. That will be very fast. This is an approach that I haven't seen a lot of people take, but yeah, I think that might help with performance issues. I realize that this also, like having an abstraction for forms, can be really helpful when you have just a lot of forms. And I can't really speak to that in the React world because I've never built an app that had a lot of forms in React like I did with AngularJS. But I feel like this shouldn't be a big problem. But yeah, take that for what it's worth. I always try to preface my inexperience, my answers based on lack of experience, by telling you that I have a lack of experience, so that you can take it with a grain of salt. But that's my intuition. Okay. Yago's wondering what conferences I'm planning on going to. I am going to a conference in London. I need to put these on my talks page. I'll get these on here later, but yeah, so I am going to React, what is it called? Advanced React London. I forget what it's called. Yep, Advanced React, or reactadvanced.com. So I'm going to this. I'm going to be speaking. Have they put me up? Yep, there I am. My face. This is cool. Yeah, and look at these friends. I can't wait to give these people hugs. I'm fully vaccinated. I'll like put my vaccination card on my chest or something, so that people know that I'm safe to hug. Okay, so React Advanced is one, and Connect Tech is another. Oh, come on, JS. There we go. Yeah, so I'm going to Connect Tech. I don't think they've updated this yet. Look at these friends. I've got friends on this page too. I can't wait to see people in real life again. Yeah, so this hasn't been updated, but it is going to be in person. It'll be in October, I think. And then I'm going to, oh shoot, what's it called? I gotta look it up. I just barely sent them an email yesterday, so this will just take a sec. Yeah, Shift Dev 2021. This is happening in September, I think, or November. Yeah, September. And it's in Croatia, where I've never been to Croatia before. I hope they're really nice. I'm sure they are. But yeah, so I'm going to be speaking there. It's going to be great. I can't wait to see people in person again. So that's where I'm going so far. Yeah, I try to keep things down to one conference a month. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Okay, sweet. Yes, thanks for Steven's blog. Steven's got some good thoughts on how to do things. Yeah. Okay, how are my IKEA skills? Well, lots of things in my house are IKEA. My IKEA skills are not great though. It takes a long time to do IKEA furniture, but I get a lot of stuff from IKEA. I didn't get this though. This I have a big bookshelf right here. I got that from Amazon, which means I got it from somewhere else, but I did put it together. Yeah, actually, so I was thinking something similar, Iago, where you could make it so that you have an on change on the form, and then that does some logic based on which element changed. I don't know if there's a way to determine that, actually. Maybe there is. But yeah, if there's not, then you may need to on change for every element. But then you do a direct mutation of the DOM. Maybe don't do that. But I don't know. Give it a shot.
Yeah, I was thinking something like this too. Just leveraging the forms, but you have to have like a custom component for like if they have ternaries and they change something, but that component does no longer exist. So you have to have like a custom one to check if it's a mounted, and then you remove from the parent state. So probably have some context or something like this.
Yeah. Seems like a fun thing to play around with, but lots of edge cases is what I am thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so it's a simple component. Feel like I'm missing something basic. Thought my rest value and state would be the same. Okay, yeah, fun stuff. So here we're saying count ref currents. We increment the count on every re-render is what's going on, and we're showing the count ref, and then we're also showing a button, and so this should be this is unexpected. Why is that happening? Oh, I know what's going on. Yeah, this is dev mode, and you're in strict mode with Code Sandbox. The default Code Sandbox actually renders everything in strict mode. This means that it's going to render your app component twice. It's going to call this function twice for every render. And that helps you avoid problems like this, where you're like, oh, because you should not be doing this. And so they call it twice so that you have problems so that you don't do this. So what you should be doing is what you're doing right here. And that's the correct way to do it. And so you won't have problems doing it that way, except for the fact that this happens after the render. And so that won't show the current value. So what you can do, if this is what you're trying to accomplish, is you could say my pref, use ref, and then say ref equals here, and then get rid of this, and then say pref dot current dot text content equals count, and it'd be, yeah, I think that's probably what you do. And this is complaining. There we go. Oh, yeah. This is why I do import star as React from React, so I don't have to worry about updating my imports all the time. Okay, text content. Oh, great, I just forked it. There you go. So that's one way to solve the problem. Or if you really wanted to use the count ref, you didn't want to use the state or something. And so what you're really trying to do is show how many times something re-rendered. Then you could say count ref dot current is plus equals 1. And then you can say count ref dot current. And then we can get rid of this state altogether. Or actually, no, we can keep it around. Who cares? That's how we re-render in the first place. And there, boom, 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 boom. So that's, if that's what you wanted to do. But that's the reason, is because this is in strict mode. And so this is going to get called twice to make sure that you have problems if you do things wrong. And specifically, this mutating a ref in the body of the function component is wrong. You shouldn't do that. And so they mess you up on purpose. So there you go. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, sweet. Tips for first-time speakers. I feel like this warrants a blog post. This is going to be that's a longer answer than I have time for right now. But practice a ton, and know that even experienced speakers get nervous. Still, I get wildly nervous before I speak. Not so much when I'm speaking at home or when I've pre-recorded it, or when I'm going to record it. I don't get that nervous for that. But when I'm standing up in front of a couple hundred people or thousands of people to speak, that makes me nervous for sure. But yeah, practice a ton. And then actually, you know what? I do have a specific piece of advice, and that is how to talk to developers and start with why. Both really great resources. And here it is by Ben Ornstein, who actually is the creator of Briefs, which is where my 3 Minutes with Kent podcast is hosted. So Ben Ornstein created Briefs. It's pretty cool. And then start with why right here. And we'll stick that there. And you know what? I'll take that that dough. Okay, so give that a look, and good luck on speaking. Talk in front of meetups and stuff a lot, and practice a lot. This isn't the best place to ask for whether anybody knows about C programming. I'm here to answer specific questions directed at me. If you want to ask about questions about C, then you can totally do that. Probably, I was going to say the backend channel is probably good, but C isn't always used for backends. Sometimes it's used, it's never a front end thing really, but I guess with WebAssembly it can be. But maybe just ask in general, or help if you have a specific question. Sweet. That'd be so cool to see you, Peter. I'd love to see you in person. Sweet. Have a question. Is there any difference between using arrow functions? There's no difference. And Peter shared a really great blog post about that. Thank you. Changes how this gets bound. That's a good point. Sweet. All right. This is great. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This was fun. I'm going to go finish putting together my son's bed. Hopefully I don't get blisters on my hands from all that screwing of the screwdriver. But thanks for hanging out. This was fun. And like I said at the beginning, I may actually be changing this to Fridays instead of Saturdays. So just keep an eye on the KCD Office Hours. And if you want to be notified when this starts, then you can go to follow me, go up to the top and raise your hand to be notified when I start meetups. This is a meetup. And then upcoming meetups also, if you don't want to be notified anytime I stream or whatever, then you could come here and just raise your hand on this specific one. So that, what in the world, who did that? That's funny. So raise your hand on this and you'll be notified anytime I start this particular meetup. And that's fun. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the future.